R2 release, What You Should Know. We are so glad you can join us today. My name is Nancy Quello, and I am in the marketing department at Markham Technology, and I'll be your host for today's session. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to cover. Probably one of the funnest part is the disclaimer for our CPE credits. So Markham LLP and Markham Technology LLC have prepared these materials as part of an educational program. The information contained herein is of a general nature and is not intended to address the circumstances of any particular individual, entity, or case. While every effort has been made to offer current and accurate information, errors can occur. Furthermore, laws and regulation referred to in this program may change over time and should be interpreted only in the light of particular circumstances. The information presented here should not be construed as legal, tax, accounting, or valuation advice. No one should act on such information without appropriate professional advice after a thorough examination of a particular situation. Now, logistics. During today's program, you can submit questions to our presenters using the Q&A feature at the bottom of the Zoom platform, located below your screen. They as in the presenters, will get to as many questions as they can towards the end of the webinar. We will email a copy of the slides and the link to the recordings to all attendees post-event. If you would like to receive continuous professional education credits for CPAs for attending today's session, you will need to be active in the platform for a minimum of 50 minutes and answer 3 polling questions. There's going to be 4 polling questions, so all you have to do is just answer 3 out of the 4 that will appear on the screen at random times during the presentation. Each poll will be active for 1 minute. Please be sure to select an answer and submit your responses for tracking purposes. Also, please allow 24 to 48 hours for us to process your CPE certification. Now, without further ado, I will pass it along to Bulin Tran, Vice President at Markham Technology. Bulin?
Thank you, Nancy, and welcome to our presentation today. We have a very exciting webinar. I just wanted to give a heads up. This is going to be a technical webinar on Sage Intacct, and the webinar is titled Sage Intacct R2 What You Should Know. So if you've attended our previous webinar series, this type of webinar, you know that we do 4 webinars a year on the What You Should Know series. This is our R2 release. So just a quick intro. I'm Bulin Tran. I'm a VP in our financial solutions practice at Markham Technology. Been supporting Sage Intacct for over 12 years, ever since we've been a partner with Sage. I've spent most of my career working with nonprofit clients. I support not just Sage Intacct, but also other ERP solutions, including Dynamics GP, used to be called Great Plains. So that's a quick background on myself. Also joining us today is Mohammed Harani. Mohammed, do you want to do a quick intro?
Of course. Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today to talk about R2, Sage Intacct release for 2023. My name is Mohammed Harani. I am the Financial Solution Manager here at Markham Technology. I have a nonprofit background. Before joining Markham, I worked for many years in the international nonprofit, and I was using also Sage Intacct. So I have the Sage Intacct experience as an end user and as a consultant. And I'm so excited to share with you today the new enhancements that we have.
Great. So today's learning objective will identify core new features in the Sage Intacct 2023 R2 release. Just as a side comment, as we're going through these new features, we'll also share a little bit about some of the features that we think our clients should, consider utilizing if they're not already used. They may not be a new feature, but these are, I think, features that should enhance their operations. So we might highlight some of that in this presentation. We're going to demonstrate some of the new functionality and how these functionality can be set up or configure and how they're used in the system. And then we'll review the benefits of these new features. Next slide, please. So before we get to our topic, we'll talk a little bit as a quick intro to who we are. So Marcum Technology is the technology arm of Marcum LLP, which is the CPA firm. So if you can see here, Marcum we're a national firm. As you can see, founded in 1951 for Marcum. Marcum Technology was born back in 2001. As part of a CPA firm, we do the whole suite of accounting services, including technology. And we, in terms of industry that we serve, as you can see here in the slide, we do service a number of industries. Next slide, please. So with regards to Marcum Technology has 5 main pillars of services. So at the top, you see digital consulting. Within digital consulting, you have financial ERP solutions, and that is the that's the practice that both myself and Mohammed belongs to. Within the ERP solutions, we do support a number of ERP, Sage Intacct being one of them. Another cloud-based solution that we support is Acumatica. Acumatica focuses more for organizations that are in manufacturing, heavy distribution. So that's really Acumatica's focus. And the others solutions that we support on the ERP side includes Dynamics GP, which used to be called Great Plains, as well as Dynamics SL. We also support a couple of FP&A solutions, and they are Planful and Vena. And then also within digital advisory, we also implement and support RPA, that's robotic process automation. So our second pillar is strategic consulting. We work with clients to provide assessment needs with regards to their back office operation. So it's back office accounting and IT operation. Another pillar that we have is the cloud and infrastructure solutions, where we provide private cloud services, infrastructure support, and disaster recovery. The fourth one is managed IT services, where clients outsource their IT support, such as IT help desk support. And finally, we've got cybersecurity, where we help our clients secure their business. Next slide, please.
All right, so now, Bolan, we will jump into Sage Intacct and start talking about the first thing we have here, which is under company administration. So now you will be receiving an email when you are logged out from Intacct. How many times you have been logged out and you don't know why, or like what is going on? You just get an email, contact the administrator, but for what? So now you will get the email saying that you have exceeded the maximum number of login attempts to Sage Intacct, so you have to contact the administrator. At least you know what is going on. So this is what we have under company administration. So let's see what else do we have. All right, so still we are under company administration. This is like relevant to those who have single entity or company. So Sage Intacct now, they are transitioning the company from single entity into multi-entity. And this, I believe, happened last year. So some of the clients, they started to get like messages from Intacct when they log in, if they are single entity, that they have to go and identify entity ID and the entity name. And like 2 years ago, also anytime we are implementing Sage Intacct, by default, it is on multi-entity. Multi-entity is more robust. Why? Though like now you have one entity, but who knows, like after a couple of years, if we want to add more companies. So that's why it is better to have the ability from now to be able to add more companies or entities in the future. Just quickly, when we talk about multi-entity, It means that we have top level, like the top level, you can create all your dimensions at top level to have it available for all the entities. Let's say chart of accounts, vendors, customers. So all the dimensions, we create them at top level and they are available for all entities. So you don't have to, again, create the chart of account in every single entity. The other thing also we have here is the naming convention. Naming convention, when I create an entity or any dimension, I would say in Intacct, let's have a clear, and this is what we recommend to our clients, to have a clear naming convention for the ID. Like, okay, this is entity, so E100. Then I can have the name, I don't know, like if you have it by state, so E100, this is Virginia, E200, this is like New York or whatever. But don't have the name in the ID, and again, you have the name. So because when you are coding any transaction in Intacct, if you are looking for the company or entity by name, okay, it will pick up. If you look by ID, it will pick up again. So make the ID simple, short. Think about it when you are importing any CSV file to Intacct. You don't want to have their like long ID. All right, this is.
So another comment about the multi-entity is if you are a single entity and now you're moving to a multi-entity, you do see visually at the top, you do see that there's a bit of a difference in terms of visual, that you will have a drop down where you'll see the entity, you'll be at the root level. Best practice is to enter all your transactions at the root level, which is the highest level, and it's going to flow right down to the entity. So if you're used to the single entity and you really, if you were set up with Sage Intacct years and years ago, you had a choice of whether or not you would set up as a single entity or as a multi-entity. So once we transition, it shouldn't create you shouldn't really create that much confusion from a user perspective and your day-to-day activity. You just pretend that you are at the root level and operate as if you're a single entity. You're going to indicate the entity ID, right? Instead of defaulting, it should still default in that entity ID. But from a change perspective, we're not anticipating that would be a big change for you. And like Mohammed said, we don't know what the future holds, right? And so that having that multi-entity allows you to, down the road, you will have more than one entity. It will be easy to set up that second entity. So that's one of the big reasons for this push. And also, if you're not aware, if you only work in a single entity, one of the big strengths with Sage Intacct is the multi-entity management. So an ability to manage multiple entity report consolidations and consolidated report. Those are some of the key and really strength of Sage Intacct.
Right. Okay, so general ledger now, we have a lock close period. So most of you who are using Sage Intacct, you know that you can close the period after you are done with the month. So you can, for example, you are done with April, you can close April period. So on top of that, now we have lock close period. So what is lock close period? You can lock the close period, as the name it is. So what happened, and when I see the use of this one, if you have, let's say, more than one person in your department who have the permission to close periods, so you can keep the lock period with, let's say, the controller or the CFO. So after you close the period, you can, on top of that, go and lock the period. It means that you cannot go back and open the close period until you unlock the previous period. I'm going to show you this in action. But I can tell you here, if your department is small, you have 2 or 3 people, like I won't use it because it's the same as the close period. So if I am able to close my period and I have only 2 people working with me and I'm the only one who can close the period, I don't need this option to, like, on top of that, to lock the period. So some of the things that I'm going to show you today, they are configuration things. So we want to enable as you can see here under the configuration for general ledger, you want to check the box to enable close reporting period to be locked. The second thing you want to do under the permission, you want to check the box to allow, to give the permission for the user in order to open or close locked period. So this is a permission thing. And I recommend also from time to another, because anytime there is a new release or an update Sage Intacct they do, these new things, they will not be by default added to your permission. So you can go to the permission and check what is new there and what is unchecked, so you can check it if you need that. Okay, I will switch now to Sage Intacct to see you to show you this in action. So let me jump into Sage Intacct now. All right, just quickly what Bulin was talking about. So this is top level, and here you have the drop-down menu. You can see the entities that you have, and you can switch to the entity, but we recommend to do all your transactions at top level, because in the transaction itself, as Bulin explained, there is a field called entity or location, whatever name you want to give it there. So, and you can use it, it will define where the transaction will be posted. Okay, so now back to our lock close period. So again, it's configuration. So under general ledger, setup, configuration here. Scroll down. I'm sorry. Enable close statutory reporting period to be locked. So you check this box, and after that, you go to the permission. The permission is under company, roles. Let's say I want to give this permission to the admin role. I go subscriptions. This is general ledger permissions. You see, it is unchecked. Why? Because it's new. So that's why I check the box here, save. Now, anyone who has the admin role will be able to lock period. So let's look at lock period where it is. So if I go general ledger, all, you see, locked close period. And when I go to lock close period, in the menu here, I will see only the periods that they are closed. So if the period is not closed, I will not see it here because I cannot lock it. The other thing I want to mention here, since we are talking about the closing periods, and this is something that we mentioned in the year-end closing, we recommend also to our client as a best practice that you can close the subledger. Subledger, we mean by that, let's say the accounts payable, account receivables, because you can close the accounts payable and still have the general ledger open. So if you close your month, let's say on the 10th or the 15th, accounts payable, I believe by the 2nd or the 3rd, you should be done. So what we can do here, we can go to accounts payable, close the period for accounts payable, and keep the general ledger open, because still we are working on payroll. Let's say we have like bank fees, whatever transaction we are coding directly in the general ledger. So we keep the general ledger open, but we can close the sub ledger. So this will give us more control on the transactions that they are coming over. All right, so let's go back to our PowerPoint. Okay, this is something new also. Include subledger transaction in your audit trail. Before that, we couldn't audit, or if you go to the transaction from the general ledger, you won't see the changes or the audit trail. So this is something new in this release. So if I switch back to Sage Intacct, again, this configuration thing, let me switch to Sage Intacct. All right, so again, under general ledger, configuration. You see this one, enable auditing of transaction posted from subledger. So you check the box, you save. Then when I go to transaction in the general ledger, journal entries, let me take APJ. I have this one. Okay, so here view audit trail. I can see when this is created or if there is any change. Before, that option was not there. Okay, back to the PowerPoint. Account receivables. So under account receivables, now we can edit the reversal date on posted payments. So it is not the posted payment. So you cannot edit the date on the payment like posted payment, just to make it clear. But what happens, and it happened with me a lot. So I reverse a payment and by mistake, I selected the wrong date. Believe me, it was a big deal before, because I have to create debit memo or credit memo in future periods to match the same period. So it was like a couple of steps that I have to do before. Now you can edit the date on the reversal. So let's say if I have reversal that is by mistake, I put it in June, but it should be in May. So I can go to this reversal and I can change the date and it will be an edit. So it will edit the reversal. Let me show you this in action.
And Mohammed, actually, before we go there, we have a polling question that we need to put up.
Sure.
So you can take just a few seconds and respond to the question. And while we are doing that, I think we can proceed to take a look at that on Sage.
Sure. So this is configuration under the account receivables. So as I mentioned before, some of the things, they are like configuration. We have to enable them in order to see them. So it is configuration, and we want also to update the permission to allow the user to edit reversal. Let me go to Intacct. Okay, we are talking about account receivables. So account receivables configuration, setup configuration. Enable edit of reversal dates. So you want to check this box, and after that you go to the permission, you update the permission for the role. And if I go now to look at posted payments, so any reversal you have, if the transaction is a reversal, you can see that now you have it like in blue. You can click on it and you can change the date, then submit, and it will update the dates that you have on the transaction.
So just I would say, there's two dates here. There is the posting date and there's the reversal date. I would say just be careful how the date that you want. Generally, your posting date and your reversal date are within the same month. But if they're different months, you may end up with the subledger, reconciling to the general ledger may be off. So I would say just, be careful. I think this is a great feature to have that flexibility. But with that, just keep in mind what that means from the general ledger, from a reporting perspective, right?
Exactly. So, and why you might get an error, as you mentioned, Bolen. So if I'm reversing a date in previous period and the previous period is closed, so then I will get an error message that the previous period is closed, right? So the other thing I want to mention here, when you close a period and you want to open period in the subledger, if we are talking about accounts payable or account receivable, we have here the summaries, okay? So if you have summaries closed, even if you open the period, you cannot edit the transaction because the summaries is, think about it, these are like books that you post at the end of the day, or like it depends on the configuration, how you configure them. But you want to make sure also that the summaries, they are open in case you want to do something in a previous period. Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so this one, let me explain what happened here. So this is a new feature that when you are looking at the customers or vendors, when you click on the name, it will show you the record information. So again, like it is for customers. I have here like just the customer, but same for vendors. Instead of clicking on or hitting the view, you can click on the name and it will show you in the view mode, okay? So yesterday I was just like finalizing what I have, preparing for the webinar, and I clicked on it. Oh my God, this is not showing the record. It's showing again the statement. Because when I looked at this new enhancement, they call it enhancement. So honestly, like before it was more helpful for me when I click on the name and it shows me the ledger, because I want a quick access to see the transactions related to the customer or the vendor instead of going to the AP ledger or AR ledger. So they changed it in the release. When you click on it, it shows you like as a view, but I have the view button next to it. So I didn't see it useful. So yesterday when I was preparing again, so I clicked on it and again, it showed me the ledger. Oh, what happened? So I went back to the release notes and I noticed that they added this one. We heard from your feedback and restored the link to the ledger report. We will relaunch this feature when we can provide it as an optional settings. I would say the good thing about it, so they listen to us. Okay, so any feedback that the Sage Intacct they get from the client or like from the partners, they take it into consideration and they change accordingly. So they changed this before in the release to have it as a view. They got the feedback that is not helpful, so they change it back, which is something good. Okay, so that's why I kept it here. I didn't delete the slide. I kept it just in case, like you read in the notes before that this is the feature there, but now it is no longer there.
I'm sure there's other systems out there where you click on the name, right? And information pertaining to the customer or pertaining to the vendor would come up. And so I think that might be the reason why they've made that change. But there's also a lot of people that are wanting to know, what is the balance, right? What's the balance for my customers and my vendors? And so when they made that change, they didn't realize it impacted a whole set of other users. So
right, because the second day the release was on May 19. On May 20, I got an email from a client, Muhammad, what did you change in our settings? Because now when I click on the name, I'm not getting the ledger. Believe me, I didn't do anything. This is the release.
yeah.
Okay, so again, like they listened to us, and now it is not there. Okay, what is next? All right, so more updates on the receivables. You know that you can create like debit memo or credit memo. Now you can apply the credit memo, because if you create a credit memo, okay, when you look at AR ledger or AP ledger, you will see it reflected there, but it is not applied to the invoice. So it needs to be applied. It has to be applied to an invoice or like to a bill if it is accounts payable. So there is an extra step that need to be taken, which is to apply the credit to the right bill or right invoice if it is account receivables. Now you can do this through an import. So you have CSV file where you can populate the information there and you can load it in and the system will apply the credit. I would do this just if I have like many credits that I have to apply, but this one or two, I prefer to go and do it inside the system directly without uploading a file. But since we are talking about templates, let me show you how we can get the templates in Sage Intacct, because believe me, I get requests from a client, can you share with me the template for vendor? Can you share with me the template for customers? Then I show them from where they can get it and they can get it themselves. Again, Sage Intacct, let's go there. All right, so any template you want to get from Intacct, it is under company, setup. I have here import data. All right, and here you can see, okay, chart of accounts, I can get the template from here. I click on the template, it will now load the template for me. Most of the things in Intacct, like vendors, you can get the template again from here. Anything you see star, it means that you can update the record. This is something really helpful. It was not there like a long time ago. What do we mean by that? Let's say if you want to change the vendor type. So, or like if you want to populate the vendor type for the vendors, instead of doing it manually, before you have to do it manually. You go to each vendor and you update it manually. Now you can just get the template, have two columns, one column for the vendor ID, second column for the vendor type. As long as you have vendor IDs that exist, so when you upload the file, the system will update existing records. So just make sure that the IDs that you are using, they are existing in the system. So they exist in the system. So this way you can update. So anything that has a star here, like vendors, customers, it means that you can update record. So where is the template that I can apply the credit for the receivables? You see here, I have account receivable payments. let me show you the template just quickly. All right, so this is a template for the payment, and there is a column here. You see the adjustment amount and adjustment number. So when you reference the adjustment number and amount, it will be applied to the invoice that you are referencing. All right. More date format options for email documents such as invoice, statement, and dunning notice. This is applicable if you have let's say customers in Europe. They have different date format. They have date, then month, then year. So now you can have two options for your statements. You can send the statement in US format or in European format. When you create the template, you can define there. When you create the email template, you can define, okay, which date format I want to use. So that is something under the my preference. And there, you can have the date that you prefer, and you can have different date format for the company. So when you create the email template, you can define which one I want to use. And you can have two email templates. One you can call it European, one you can call it US. So when you use the US one, you can default it to what you have in your company. And when you use the European one, you can default it to have what you have in your reference, which is the European style. All right, so you have here send dunning notice by customer group. When you want to send the dunning notice, now you can have group of customers, and you can send it in a bulk. So when I go to account receivables, print or email, I have here dunning notice. So scroll down, or customer group. So you can create the groups that you want. You select the group and you can send it to group instead of individual one.
Mohammed, I think we need to launch our second polling question. There we go. So folks can take a second to respond to that. And meanwhile, I think we're going to move on.
All right. What is next? This feature, I would call it fancy one. Let me show you why. So now we have enhanced list of vendors. So this is for vendors list, but I believe it will be also for other objects in the future. So first, when you go to the vendor list, you will see this, which is turn on list beta interface. So still it is beta, okay, but you can try it now. I enabled this in my environment. Let's go and check it. Accounts payable, vendors. All right, I have to enable it. Sorry, how is this? Take a few seconds. All right. So you have more filter options. And on the top right here, configure columns. You can configure which columns you want to add. So it gives you more flexibility over what you want to see in the columns. And when you click on any of the vendors, you will see the vendor information next to it. So you can go to the next, and so on. So you have more options in the list that you can utilize. Okay, I have here purchasing and order entry. I combined two together because it is the same thing. So the features for both same features, they have the same feature. So specify location and department and subtotals. You have to be on top level in order to do that, and this is still early adopter. So just quickly, what is early adopter? So Sage Intacct, when they want to launch new things, so they created first as early adopter. So and they let the users test it. They get their free feedback. They see like if there's something need to be enhanced, something like need to be corrected, whatever, before they have it as like launched for all users. So this is still early adopter. So what happened here? When you create a purchase requisition or purchase order or order entry, sales order, you know that you have the subtotal section. Let me go to purchasing. Let's look at the purchase order here. If I create a purchase order, in the transaction definition, you can enable the subtotal. In the subtotal, you can add things like discount, shipping, so anything that is applicable for all the items that you have the top section. So before that, when you go to show details, you don't have the option to select the project, the class. So these are added now. And in the configuration also, because I have to enable the early adopter, if I enable the early adopter, I will be able also to change the department and change the location. So when I change department or location, I can do it as two steps. I can do it in the transaction definition where I can define by default what is the department and the locations that I want. So anytime I create a purchase requisition or purchase order or sales order, it will default to whatever I have in the transaction definition. At the same time, I can also override what I have. So I can go in and change the department and change the location. Again, this is still early adopter. They are taking the feedback to see if there is something need to be tweaked out, anything needs to be improved. So this is available under top level. You can do that if you are under the top level, you can change it.
Just a comment, that you had just showed the vendor advanced filter screen that was released in R1. And, if you've not tried it out, I highly encourage, anyone that's on Sage Intacct to try out, because it's really, it provides a lot of functionality, flexibility, I should say, in terms of how you want to see your records now. And it does take a little bit of used to using it, but it's so much better than what we had before, so much easier. And the best thing is you really can't create any, you won't be able to like create any problems or creating any damage to the data, because all you're really doing is just querying, right? You're filtering. So I highly encourage folks to use it if you've not used it. I absolutely love that feature. It's a big change from a Sage perspective, having that an ability to enhance that filter.
Right, and again to your point, Willen, like in a previous release, they added called advanced filter.
Yeah.
Advanced filter, like I can say start with and end with, so I can have like more options to filter my chart account in this case. Because before, what I used to do, like I download the whole list, and in Excel I start like to delete the accounts that I don't want. So now I can filter it from here, and then I can export it directly.
Yes, but on the vendor side, what you just showed on the vendor side was a totally different layout that was even much better than this, So I think that's going to be rolled out in other objects as well, as you said. But this is a great way to really take advantage of the new features. And you can't break anything, because all you're really doing is just filtering and pulling data.
Exactly. Okay, time and expense. So under time and expense, now when you are coding any credit card transaction, you can link it to an employee. And then when you create the employee expense report, you can reference the transaction. So this is helpful for reconciliation. Yesterday, I was on a call with a client and they want to start using it. And they want to make sure that any transaction or any credit card statement, all the credit card transaction, they have expense reports and they can reconcile them. So when you go to the credit card, you will have this option. So you will see that there is a use with employee expense. You want to check the box, and you want to have an expense account as a clearing account. So it should be an expense. So you cannot have it as like balance sheet account. It has to be expense account. So you create the account and you reference it here. Then when you create a transaction, credit card transaction, you have to select the employee there. When you select the employee and you go to create the employee expense report, you will see the transaction there. The credit card transaction that you created, you can reference it there. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay. Cash management, we have the credit card under cash management. So you can enable that for one of the accounts, let's say, or all, it depends what do you have. Like if you have a credit card that you are using for employee, so this is a credit card I'm going to check the box for and define the account. So when we go to credit card transactions, let's look at this one. So my transaction here, you see it has the account code that I defined in the credit card setup. Okay, let's edit. And you see here we have the employee dimension. Once you select an employee, this field, the account, it will be grayed out. It will default to this account that you have in the credit card setup. But in the same credit card, I might have expenses that they belong to employee, other expense they don't. So for the expenses that they don't need an employee, I can have different account code, you see. But once you reference an employee here, it will gray it out. Okay. So when you create expense report it is under time and expense. Let's create one for Carla Grace. So you see you have here select credit card transactions. It will show you any transactions that you have for Carla. You pick this transaction, and here you can select the real expense type. So this is like general travel. So now it will be booked to travel. So when you create this transaction, the system will debit the travel and will credit the account that you have it in the credit card setup. So it will clear it out. So that's why part of reconciliation at month end, you want to make sure that the credit card clearing account is 0 because you allocated all the expenses. Okay, financial reports. This feature, this is so helpful. You know that you can drill down on the numbers in Intacct, which numbers that they are in blue. If you have, let's say, like difference columns, so the difference is a calculation, right? You cannot drill down on calculation, but you can drill down anywhere you have a blue number. Before the total, you cannot drill down in the total, but with this release, now you can drill down in the total. Same as what you do with like the accounts, like for the natural account. Now you can click on the total and it will show you the details. Before, I have to download the general ledger. If I want to verify the report, let's say if I build a report and I verify the numbers, I used to get the general ledger and different report and go and verify it against what I have in the report. Now I can drill down and then export it out.
Or if you wanted to search on a particular dollar and you're not sure which account it goes to, you don't have to go through each line. You could just click on the total and look for your transactions.
Right. Dashboards. So in this release, the service industry, now they have role-based dashboards. Prior to this release, I believe in R3 2022, they added for nonprofit. So where you can have role-based dashboards, you can download them. In this release, now they added for service industry quick start. So let me show you where you can get these dashboards. I have an environment here, which is for service in the industry. So when you go to dashboards here, you have the dashboard library. You click on dashboard library. you see they have system in the title. So these are by role, like AP manager, AR manager, you can install it. So you install the dashboard and you can customize it. So if there are things not relevant to you, you don't like, you want to add more things, you can still do that. But at least you have starting point. So we recommend to download whatever you have in Sage Intacct and go and do the changes. At least you have something instead of starting from scratch. And again, like on dashboards, so dashboard, think about this is the container. What we do with our clients, if they want to give access to program staff, non-finance staff, we recommend to have dashboard for them. And we have the dashboard as a landing page. So when they log into Sage Intacct, they don't have to navigate anywhere. They have the dashboard and they have all the relevant reports for them on the dashboard. So it makes it much easier for non-finance people who are accessing Sage Intacct. So this is the best use of dashboard. Give it to non-finance people. Give them what they should be seeing there, make it easy for them.
The one thing I would mention about dashboards, you want to be careful about how many dashboards you have. So it's also, you also want to keep in mind that there's a maintenance component to it. So yes, while we want to have our non-finance people access these dashboards so they can get to, financial reports or other information that they need, you also want to keep it simple for yourself so that you don't end up spending, too much time maintaining these dashboards.
Okay.
And we actually have, we actually have one another polling questions that we wanted to bring up. So this is our polling question number 3. If you can just take a few seconds to respond, and we will continue.
Yeah. So under subscriptions, when you want to add any new subscription, so it is available now only for contract and the projects, where you can click on detail. It will show you the details, so what you are going to subscribe to. So they have it only for contract and project, and they will add for the other modules in the future. Before you subscribe to any new module, you have to contact your partner, Sage Intacct partner, because like these modules, they might be like there's a cost for this, so they have to submit the request to Sage Intacct, and you will be invoiced for that. So make sure, please, to contact your partners before adding any of the modules. Okay, so under user experience here, not that much. So change in the labels, like before you used to see it as client, entity, now it's called instance. For contracts, before it was override amount, now it is auto renewal. Contracts, again, the old label was use suggested price, now use billing price. So not that much. Okay, so lease accounting. So the lease accounting, this was launched as early adopter in 2022 R4. Now it is available for all users. So when we talk about lease accounting, let me just quickly explain what is the ASC 842 from accounting point of view. I believe in 2020, so this is a requirement now that when you have a lease, you have to book it as like debit. You debit full amount and you credit as a liability, the full amount also. And every month you will be amortizing. So you are going to expense against cash and you amortize the assets with the liability. At the end of the lease, it will be 0. Why it is no longer as off balance sheet, now it should be on the balance sheet, visible for anyone that, okay, you have this amount of lease that you committed to. So now you can track this in Intacct under the lease accounting module. So Sage Intacct, it is a new application, as I mentioned, and it will allow you to manage the financial and to be like in compliance with the US GAAP or the IFRS. So it will do the schedule for you. So you will have it like you have the references, the documents, everything. It will be more accurate to have it system generated. And if you don't have it at the moment, we have like other options, I would say here that, okay, you can set recurring transaction. So this is what we were recommending before the clients, before we have this feature here. So we were doing it like, we know that every month we are going to book the same amount, right? So this is a recurring transaction. I can just go create recurring transaction and set a schedule, and the system every month will be doing the same transaction for me. All right.
Actually,
So
that goes with any recurring transaction and any type of amortization, I guess you can say, like even for like prepaid transactions, you can always set them up as recurring and amortize it over the period that's applicable for that transactions, right?
depreciation, same
Yeah.
thing, right? Okay. Now the upcoming events. Over to you, Bulin.
All right, so we're coming to the end of our presentation, and there's polling question number 4. So if you can just take a second to respond to that. But as many of you may know, we're very engaged and very active at Markham in our learning center. And so we have a few upcoming webinars. Unlocking Financial Insight, the power of a FP&A tool. So FP&A is financial planning and analysis. This presentation is focused on budgeting, forecasting, and analysis, leveraging the FP&A solutions. So that's on June 6th. So for some of our clients that need to do budgeting, forecasting, this is a great webinar to attend. And then on later in that month, we have Stop Spending Painful Hours on Budgeting. So this is going to be focused on Martis, one of our solutions that we support. And I guess, we have been asked, what's the difference between a solution like Martis versus a solution like FP&A, Vena, or Planful. Those are the two FP&A solutions that we support. And I think the big difference is the functionality that FP&A provide versus a solution like Martis. So Martis tend to focus, just on budgeting. It has forecasting, but it's but there are some limitations in terms of from a flexibility of what Martis. So it tend to be more on smaller size organizations that may be leaning toward Martis, whereas our larger clients may be more interested in FP&A solution. And then, so that's on June 28th. And then lastly, we have Day 2, is this the time to up your game? So when we talk about, and that's on June 29th, and when we talk about Day 2, what we're really talking about is the day after, or the period after your audit, right? You're done with the year, your calendar year done, and you've closed that year, you've gone through your audit, and hopefully for some of you out there, it might be a quieter time for you. And so really just looking back at your years and looking at the systems are you using, what can you do to up the game to improve your accounting operations for the upcoming year, right? For the year that you're in. So that's going to be what this webinar is going to focus on. And you can register for these webinars right there in our URL that's provided there. And that's it. So wanted to thank everyone for joining this webinar. Hope that this information that we just went through is helpful for you. And if you have any questions, you have our contact right there. Feel free to reach out to us. And thank you so much. Hope to see you in the future. Thank you. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Just as a reminder for folks who completed the polling questions and have stayed here for 50 minutes, please allow us 24 to 48 hours in order for us to process your CPE certification. And then if there are any questions on the CPE front, please feel free to reach out to me. And that we did have a few questions from our polling.
Yes, and we still have a few minutes. Let me take a look at so what is the date of the actual release? And also, are users going to have to download, or will it be automatic? So do you know the actual date, Mohammed? Those are
May 19th. May 19th.
Yeah.
May 19th. There you go.
And you don't have to, okay, so so there are some features you don't have to do anything, they will be there. For other feature, like you want to enable as a configuration thing. So as you saw me doing, okay, I went, let's say, to lock close period. So I check the box in the configuration, and then I added the permission to the role. So it is a configuration thing. So you don't have to install, to just enable them if they are configuration. If they are not configuration, you will see it reflected. What do we mean by that? Like the name, the label name. So it's already changed. You don't have to do anything. You will see the new name there.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because one of the questions was that somebody was not able to see the update on their Sage in the vendor information when it came to the user experience update. So they weren't sure if that was something that they need to enable on their end, or is that something that just automatically updates?
Yeah, so for the vendors, I believe this is the vendor list. So there is their turn on beta on the right, top right. So you want to click on the orange link, which is called turn on beta. When you click on it, it will take a few seconds, and then you will have the new look there.
And we are of course available to you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. I believe this is also recorded, and we can also share this with you as well. And we do this 4 times a year, so we're gonna do it again on the R3 and of course R4. So super excited and looking forward to seeing everyone in the future.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.